We want to go over and talk about one of the new features added for 2015, and that is the ability to tilt our combine header and feeder house without having to use the turnbuckles that have previously been added. Back when the 60 series combines came out in 2004, we had to tilt our feeder house faceplate by dropping off the head and then using those turnbuckles on the top of the head by loosening some bolts, and then turn the turnbuckles to pitch our feeder house forward or backwards depending on what header angle we wanted. Well, in 2015 they've added the option to be able to do that hydraulically from the cab. So we're going to kind of go over that, how that works, and how to calibrate that and how to properly set that. So first I just kind of want to show you how it works. So basically I can take a switch on the back of the hydro handle, and I can pitch that head forward like that until it gets to the stop, or I can pitch it back until it gets to the stop, and I can do all this manually ahead of time. So that's going to assist me when I'm hooking up to a header that's on the ground, or maybe it's on a tall head cart, or maybe I'm just in an awkward position and my back tires are in a ditch or something. It's going to allow me to have some flexibility on how I'm going to try to attach to that head. The other thing that's going to be handy is on the go I can adjust that. So if I'm in fluffy, dry conditions, I can pitch my corn head back and try to alleviate some of that fluff conditions that can occur. Or if I want to, get a little tighter, a little closer to the ground with my stalk rolls, I can pitch that feeder house forward and get those stalk rolls a little bit closer to the ground. So it gives me a lot of options on a corn head, but on a draper or a platform is where specifically this was actually designed. Many times on a platform in good dry running conditions, we maybe want to pitch that feeder house forward just a little bit to get a little bit more aggressive and try to cut those beans off a little shorter to make sure we grab those bottom pods. But then as we get into evening time, or maybe we're trying to cut in some adverse wet conditions, it sure would be nice to maybe rock that feeder house back and pitch that feeder house a little bit so that those guards aren't quite as aggressive with their stance towards the ground. Maybe allow that header to float just a little bit. That was cumbersome in the past with those turnbuckles because you needed to change it on the go, and you just didn't usually take the time to go ahead and do that. Well, now we can do it from the cab, and we're going to kind of go over how that works and how to calibrate it. So, continuing with the video, we'll go through all those features. I'm taking a look at the back of the hydro handle, and you'll notice there's some new buttons for this year. I've got an up and down button here, I've got a center button right here, and I've got another up and down button here. Now you can set your feeder house tilt to work with this button or this button in the monitor, and we'll cover that in a minute. Right now this button is not used, so it's a future use. Don't have any idea what that's going to be, but for right now it's not used. But you can set up your feeder house tilt with either one of these two buttons, and you'll change that over on the corner post display, and we'll show you how to do that. But here's your two buttons that you can change your feeder house tilt. Okay, from my main run screen, if I want to get to the feeder house tilt page, I need to go down here to my header button. It's the one that has a picture of the head. Now if you've got a platform on, it'll look like a bean platform. But right now I've got a corn head attached, so it's going to look like a corn head. So it's right here, actually be letter I. So I touch that, and I go down here to this one at the bottom, which is kind of a new button that wasn't there before, and it looks like kind of an outline of the hydro handle. So I go ahead and hit that, and it allows me to set up which button on the back of the hydro handle is going to be used for my feeder house tilt. So I've got letter C and D, which would be the left button as you're sitting in the seat, and I've got E and F, which would be the right button as you're sitting in the seat. So right now I've got the tilt set to letter E and F, which is the right button on the back of the hydro handle. The little icon there is just to indicate kind of which button on the back side of the hydro handle we're going to use. So that's where we change that. And also notice over here on the left hand column I can set up a page or I can set up one of these little icon boxes here to where I can actually see the degrees that my feeder house is tilted. So right now it's at a -3.5, which will be all the way back. And when we calibrate it, we're gonna set it to 0 degrees, and we'll go through that. But for right now, that's the box where you can actually see it. You know, is my feeder house actually back of straight up and down, or is it forward of straight up and down? So that's going to be indicated right there. So now we're going to go through a calibration of my feeder house tilt. Again, that's new for 2015. So I'm going to go here to my combine button, and that's my main screen. So to get to my calibration, I'm going to go into the book button here. That'd be letter B as in boy. So at the top I've got threshing clearance. So I'm going to hit the drop down menu, and what I'm going to look for as I scroll, I'm going to go up. It says feeder house fore aft tilt range. So that's the one I'm going to want to select. Okay, and it's telling me that I have to have the combine on level ground, and it wants the engine running at low idle. Okay, those conditions are right now. My combine's sitting on a pretty level spot, and my combine is at low engine speed. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and hit the enter button down here. Okay. Okay, so what it's going to have me do is it's going to have me tilt that feeder house fully forward and fully backwards. So right now it's telling me it's aft. So it's going to want me to tilt that feeder house all the way back, which I'm already there. You can see by the indication I'm pushing down on the switch. So you can see by that indication it's already all the way back. So now it's going to ask me to hit my next step. Okay, so now it's saying that I want to go ahead and tilt the feeder house all the way forward. So on the switch on the back of my hydro handle, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hold on that button, and I'm going to pitch that feeder house all the way forward. And it should go to roughly a plus 11 degrees, or I'm sorry, 13 and a half degrees. Okay, it's all the way forward, it won't move anymore. So I'm going to go ahead and hit my next step button. Okay, now this is something we really haven't had to do during calibrations before. We're going to get a tape measure, and we're going to have to hop out of the cab. And what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to measure 40 inches off the ground. So we're going to raise or lower the feeder house to where it's only 40 inches off the ground to that center pivot bolt. So we're going to go ahead and pause the video for a second, and we'll go show you how to do that, and then we'll come back in and finish our calibration. Okay, we're out here, we're getting our feeder house set so we can finish the calibration of our fore and aft tilt. And you'll see that shiny pivot bolt on the back side there, I got 40 inches right dead in the middle of that. That's where you want to have your feeder house. It really helps to have two people doing this so you don't get up and out of the cab too many times, but please be careful and use safety first mindset if you're going to be having somebody else there helping you. Just make sure that they're out of the way before you move the feeder house or tilt the feeder house. So I've got my 40 inches set on that center pivot bolt, the great big pin right there on the side of the feeder house. Now the other thing I got to do is I've also got to get my feeder house, I've got to get it zeroed for 0 angle. Now what I've used here is basically a magnetic angle finder. They call them a protractor or whatever you want to call it, but basically it's a magnet. I put it on the back post of the header, and it's right now it's setting on 0 with the white line there. So I've got my feeder house face at a vertical, and I've got my pin at 40 inches of height. So now I can finish completing the calibration. Here's where it's asking me to raise my feeder house to that pin we showed you with the tape measure. Here's where it's asking me to get that to 40 inches, which we've done that. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the next step. And here's where it's asking me to tilt the feeder house frame to where I have the vertical. So with my protractor, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to have them let me know when it's all the way level. Okay, they're telling me I'm on the money now. So now that I've got my vertical position of my feeder house front face, I'm going to go ahead and hit the next step button, and it says I've completed my calibration. So that's going to complete the calibration portion of the feeder house 4.5 tilt. Okay, now we want to talk about how to set our faceplate so that we can go ahead and get it programmed. So when I go through the field, if I want to have a preset position that I can return to, I want to have the ability to do that, and I'm going to show you how to go through all that. Well, notice over here I've got it right now, it's set at a positive 3 degrees, okay? So basically what I have to do is I have to have my header switch engaged, which my header switch is now engaged right there. It's down and forward. I do not need to engage my separator, okay? So now what I'm going to come over here and do is I'm going to hit number 1. So I'm going to raise it, and I'm going to watch my feeder house is going to come up, okay? Alright. Now, so now when I hit number 2 on my feeder house, my header's going to go down, and it's going to return to that 3, that positive 3. Now if I want to make some changes to that, let's say that I want to pitch it back just a little bit, okay? So I'm gonna pitch it back a little bit, and I say I want to flatten that head out, and I'm going to go to a -2. Now to store that, so I manually adjusted it. To store it, I'm going to go back in here, and I'm going to hold and press number 2 and hold it for about 5 seconds, and then it's going to be stored. So now when I hit number 1, you can watch it change because it was set for vertical. Okay, number 1 set for flat, and then I hit number 2, and the header goes back down, and it goes back to that -2 that I just programmed in. So that's how you're going to go ahead and set that for a 4.5 return to position setting. Now you can do the same with button number 3, and as you saw with button number 1 as well. And then every time you hit that button, it's going to go ahead and return to that preset position.